Okay, we'll move on to item 12. We'll receive a report on the Commission land use comment process and consider approval of Resolution 16-0. Is that a 1 or a 4?
01.
01. My ink got over it. I can't read it.
Sure.
Look to you, Eric, for the introduction.
Yeah, if I can just give a brief introduction, but primarily I want to turn this over to Jennifer Ruffalo. But just to introduce Jennifer, let me say that the land use function is one of the Commission's most important roles. We have responsibility to ensure that local government land use decisions in the primary zone are consistent with our land use and resource management plan. In regard to that, we comment on local government land use proposals in the primary zone. We've also frequently commented on proposals in the secondary zone. And we often comment on actions by state and federal agencies in both the primary and secondary zone. Our process is that our land use team, and our land use team consists of our county planners, Jennifer Ruffalo, covering Contra Costa and Solano counties, Adele Lagomarsino, covering San Joaquin County, and Blake Roberts, covering Yolo and Sacramento counties, and myself. The team meets every other week, sometimes more often, and we talk about what we are hearing out there through regular contact with local government planners, through what we're receiving from the state clearinghouse or directly from local governments. And then from those discussions, we're crafting comment letters on behalf of the Commission, mostly for the primary zone, because we have that absolute responsibility to ensure that those actions are consistent. But again, as I mentioned, often for projects in the secondary zone. And one of the last things I'll say is that in 2005, and there might be at least a couple of Commission members who were around then, the Commission adopted a policy, fairly detailed policy, involving subcommittees and involving, frankly, a lot of actions that weren't specifically authorized in statute at that time and are not authorized in statute since. And as best as can be determined, I don't know that 2005 policy has ever been followed. It's certainly not one that we're relying upon today. So part of this item tonight is to revisit with you all the process we undertake to provide comment on land use projects, to propose a new process, not just focused on our primary zone responsibility, but also on our responsibility to provide comment on Delta as place, what we refer to as the unique Delta values. And we do have some statutory rules specific to that Jennifer will talk about. And then also our work to help provide comment to agencies working on projects that might impact the proposed Great California Delta Trail. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our lead, our land use lead, our Contra Costa and Solano County land use planner, and our program manager for our land use and resource management plan update, Jennifer Ruffalo.
Good evening, Jennifer. Welcome. You're on. Yep.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Pifo and Commissioners. I am pleased to present this proposed approach to our comment letters to you this evening. And I think this is particularly appropriate given Commissioner Villegas' point on an earlier agenda item regarding the Commission's rather limited jurisdiction. This approach would help us make the most use of and the most effective use of your 4 different types of authority, which are listed on this slide. You have jurisdiction over development, you have the authority to comment on projects that could affect Delta resources, and you have a significant, relatively new authority over Delta as place through your commenting and recommendations to the Stewardship Council. And then last but not least is your obligation and mandate to create the Great California Delta Trail System. We realize that some projects will be a combination of all four of those, so these are not to be strictly one at a time kinds of letters. You can mix and match. We can mix and match. The first type of authority is your regulatory jurisdiction over development in the primary zone, and as you know, the definition of development is pretty limited to certain types of development, and there are a whole lot of things that are explicitly outside of your jurisdiction. So we use this authority quite regularly, and we have been commenting lately on projects that include, for example, permits for wireless telecommunications facilities, or towers disguised as mono pines or faux palms and things like that. There have been ordinance amendments in several counties governing the process for approving wireless telecommunications facilities, and I think we all agree that's a good thing to increase that those capacities in the Delta, but not at the risk of the aesthetics of the Delta. And so when the counties amend their ordinances for that, or for wineries, or for event centers in the primary zone, or those that could be in the primary zone, this is the authority that we use to comment. The next type of authority is, next slide please. That was fancy. Is your non-jurisdictional authority over actions that might affect Delta resources. And these are letters that we write to lead agencies such as state agencies or federal agencies. Again, this is not invoking your jurisdiction over primary zone development, but it's a key piece of your authority to recommend and comment on much broader array of projects, such as state and federal agency actions. We've recently commented on the Army Corps of Engineers Sacramento River Flood Control Project General Reevaluation. We've, as you know, you've commented on the California Water Fix, so this is an authority that we can invoke to describe your concerns and have more influence over projects which we do not have regulatory authority over. The third form of your jurisdiction is Delta as place. That's our kind of shorthand for referring to the unique values of the Delta. This arose out of the Delta Reform Act of 2009, and it augmented the Commission's authority. It's similar to item 2 in that your letters here go to the Delta Stewardship Council, and you can express comments on a much wider range of concerns than the land use jurisdiction over development in the primary zone. Recent comment letters to the Stewardship Council include commenting on the Port of Stockton's dredging project for the Deepwater Ship Channel and DWR's Decker Island levee repair demonstration project, which are both specifically exempt from the definition of development. So we can use this authority to weigh in on a lot more things that affect the Delta. And then last but not least is the Great California Delta Trail Authority. You've also adopted several resolutions encouraging the development of bicycle lanes where appropriate on new and improved Delta levee roads. This is a really great opportunity to advocate for more coordination at the local level, particularly with county park and recs or county trail efforts or the Department of Parks and Recreation or East Bay Regional Park Districts. That covers the 4 types of authority, and as I said, some projects invoke more than one, so it would be a mix and match kind of situation. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the Commission of Jennifer? Seeing none, do I have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, Eric, any further input? And I'll see what the Commission wishes to do for direction.
Well, Madam Chair, we do have a proposed resolution in the packet, Resolution 16-01. And the resolution does a couple of things. It it references the statutory, and by the way, we threw a lot of statute at you tonight and made a lot of code reference, made a lot of references to a section in the Public Resources Code, and at the back of the staff report are all of those statutory references. So I'd encourage you to take a look at those if you're interested in digging deeper. So the resolution makes reference to those statutory references. It approves, most importantly, the action of the resolution approves the delegation of the authority to comment to your executive director specific to those 3 code sections that are referenced in the last paragraph of the resolution. And I'm sorry, I should have had my shorthand to tell you right off the top of my head what those are, but I think it has to do, certainly has to do with the projects that fall under the rubric of development in the primary zone, and also has to do with projects under the Delta as Place designation. The resolution will make it clear that we've moved away from that 2005 process, which we have not been following, and just to, again, to make it clear that the Commission goes on record as approving the delegation of its authority to comment to your staff.
Thank you, Eric. Commissioner Natoli.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would be prepared to move the resolution, but I wanted to ask about the third whereas. You quote from the Resources Code, but if I recall correctly, there's discussion, and it may not reference the Commission specifically, but in your second line, or second line there where it says, make recommendations to Delta Stewardship Council on methods of preserving the Delta. Since this is a Delta Protection Commission, I guess, again, if it's not quoting directly from statute of preserving and protecting the Delta. And now, if you can insert that with, breaker quotes or whatever, I think it's an important distinction. It may not sound like much of a difference, but there are distinctions to preserving and protecting, and I would encourage us to weigh in when we think the Delta needs to be protected. And I think there are some items this evening where we had that discussion and may have had differences, but to me, that's important.
Yeah, there might be a couple of code sections. This one that's referenced here is very specifically
right.
Says advising the council on methods of preserving the Delta as an evolving place.
Jessica?
Yeah, if I might, Eric, it could be appropriate within the staff report and within the proposed approach, the proposed policy that the Commission wishes to adopt for its land use comments to reference those concepts of preserving and protecting. With respect to the statute, that resolution does quote from the statute, okay. But the staff report might be an appropriate place to enhance that authority.
Okay, because when you go back to the co-equal goals and the qualifier that's very important to that is to, protecting the unique values, the state's the values, and the Commission may or may not have oversight on those, but I think it's, again, comports with the law, and I don't want to get sideways with statute. That's not the intent at all, but I guess I would just, if you're going to be giving the delegated authority to do that, certainly within the purview of, one, the statutes, but also within the legislation itself under Reform Act as it relates to certainly co-equal goals and respecting that, the Stewardship Council role, this Commission's role, the Conservancy's role. I do think that it may be somewhere either in this resolution or, as Jessica, you may have suggested, that gives staff that latitude, certainly, and if there's some ambiguity when it comes to that, I trust you as the ED would bring that to this Commission under your delegated authority. For some reason, you thought there was some conflict in with the statutes read here and what you're carrying out on behalf of this Commission. So, but I'm prepared for the resolution. If there would be some amendment to that this evening, Jessica, you would suggest to be clearer, I would accept that as well. So.
So would your motion include, Commissioner Natoli, ask staff to include a reference to not only preserving but protecting the Delta as an evolving place, not to change statute language, but in the introductory document and communication? Correct? Is that clear?
Did you say in the resolution itself, physically change the resolution, or just in the wording in the staff report?
Jessica, I'll defer to you. We can't change the statute language in the resolution.
Right, I realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I think I would say, and I'll again defer to Eric as well, it may be most appropriate. I'm looking at page 5 of the staff report under little c, delta as place. The introductory paragraph could be an appropriate place to refer to preserving and protecting.
Okay.
We could wordsmith it here, or we could delegate to staff the authority to import that concept.
I think that's part of Don's motion. And is there a second to?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Johnson. Any further questions or comments from commissioners? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor to accept staff's recommendation on the new policy with the inclusion of the word protection in the body of it to be determined by staff as appropriate. Eric?
And Madam Chair, specifically to adopt the resolution as well, 16.01.
It's exactly what I said, isn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that.
I'm kidding you. I may have missed it.
The answer is yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It's getting late for all of us. All right. And to accept the resolution as presented, 16-01. Is there any further question or comment? All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.